Welcome to Whachacha's Tabletop World, a channel devoted to the love of board gaming. My name is Sweetness Whachacha, and these are my thoughts on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the game. If you'd like to see a brief overview of this game, click the link on the screen or down below. Okay, so now we're going to find out if the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game lives up to one of the top 10, in my opinion, the greatest horror films ever made, the 1974 film. So let's take a look at the art first. The art, I think, looks great. You know, I mean, just look at this cover; is fantastic. I love it. The photorealistic likeness on them, but it still looks like art, which I really love, especially when you're doing something with an IP like this. You can buy the miniatures upgrade that's on pre-order right now, which, I mean, is always going to be better for me to play with miniatures. But it's a bit of a shame because I think the standees and the art on them look so great. It's almost like kind of like having two good, like a great choice, like either one or the other, and they're both really good. Now the components are very, very well done. They're really, I mean, I wouldn't say this game is overproduced, but it definitely has some notes there. This hideous bag, I mean, it's textured. I mean, it looks like human skin stitched together. I mean, that's amazing. I think this is like such a over-the-top piece of production. You also get this little tray, which looks like something the Slaughter family would have barbecue out of, human people barbecue. And you know, this helps the game quite a bit, as well as in terms of cutting down bandwidth, because you throw the tokens in here, and at the end of the turn, you know, anything that's in there goes right back into the bag, which I think is both helpful and really, really cool. Really gets you into the theme of the game. So that brings me to the theme of the game. I mean, this game is absolutely dripping with theme. I mean, it is. You can tell that this game was made by real fans of the film, because everything that you want from that film is in this thing. I mean, you know, even speaking about the like overproduced in a way, like, you know, I touched on these briefly in the overview. These cards, these like when you died cards, completely superfluous. You don't need them at all in any way, shape, or form. But they just tell you what happens when your character dies. And I'm not going to read them here to ruin it, but it's like so unnecessary, but I just really think that's a really cool idea. It just adds a little bit, you know, just a little bit more to the experience. You know, just saying, instead of just saying, well, you're dead, gives you a little extra story there, which I think was really pretty cool. The board itself, I mean, absolutely, every spot from the movies is going to be on there. The brambles are on there. You get hurt when you go through the brambles. The house, you know, like the places where Grandpa comes out, and the dining area, the killing room, all that stuff is just jammed in there, and the board looks very, very cool. And just even like the eye, you know, the eye token, and stuff like that, like, you know, and the photos from the hitchhiker on the tiles, you know, I'd be hard pressed to find something in the film that you would not find in this game. Now, the theme is so strong, and it's obviously a very iconic film, and I wonder a little bit about the mechanisms and theme as a mismatch a little bit. I know that seems weird since this game is like completely and totally Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I think that people that are fans of the film, that are not necessarily gamers, are going to have a little bit of a struggle with this. This is definitely not like a gateway game or a lighter game. This game has some weird concepts and things that even as gamers, you kind of have to stop and say, let me go back and recheck that. Going back to the rulebook a few times, it plays very easily, very streamlined, very well. But I think that, like, if you're not a gamer, you're probably going to have a little bit of a struggle getting into and understanding the basics of this game. Unfortunately, this phenomenal production and this a real love letter to the film. I mean, it's great thematically, like I say, and production-wise, but I don't think that really panned out into the mechanisms for me personally. Sometimes the game, I find there's like this needle that you have to abstract, or you have to, you know, you have to figure out, are you going to be more abstract? You're going to be more literal to the property you're taking it from. And this one definitely buried the needle in that on the theme side, and the mechanisms I find were not as good. Be very careful here, because I hate to say it like this, but I feel like this game, to me, it just very simply felt like a game that somebody brought to me. I'll be like, okay, great. You've got a fantastic game here, a game start. Now we have to play test it and iron out some of these problems, because I think there's a lot of issues here in the game. Now, there's some small areas, but let's just talk about the biggest area. The biggest thing is the game revolves around this hideous bag and drawing from that. And the mechanism is a push your luck. I mean, the whole idea is you're going to keep drawing tiles, hoping to get action tiles, you know, and you're going to weather those bad effects, or you're going to bust, one or the other. And the fact is that This is a mechanism that you can absolutely sidestep. You can move for free at the beginning of your turn, and there's really no reason to draw from the bag other than to keep Leatherface from moving. But the strategy seems to be the best strategy. Draw one tile from the bag. It's bones, it's a photo, it's something unnecessary, doesn't matter, or it's Leatherface, fine. And then you just stop. And then you wait for the next player to go, and then they make their couple of moves. And that's the best way to traverse the board. Now, I could see an argument, somebody saying, look, you don't always have to do the optimal strategy. Like, if you're playing a game and it's like, okay, this, iron is the best strategy, not farming. Well, okay, but sometimes, you play a game, you're going to try different strategies just to try different routes to victory. But this game, it really doesn't seem like there's a big incentive to draw from the bag. I mean, like, you're already moving around the board. It's not really worthwhile. Now, on top of that, the action list that you can do is not that, compelling. You can, in the beginning of the game, firstly, there's a very good chance that on your first turn, a couple turns, you may not even get an action phase. And that's a real psychological feel bad to have somebody be like, cool, I can't wait to do something. Oh, I don't get to go. And to have your turn skipped and possibly multiple times, that's really kind of a problem. In the end of the game, you could be swamped, like just absolutely swamped with action tiles. You could just have all the actions in the world, and you don't even want to take them. You don't do anything with them. It's a very strange thing. I've never found a game where like that was the case, where there's nothing to do. Not even like I can just fix this and that just for the heck of it, just to make the board look tidier. And I find that like that's so strange to me, and I could see you saying, hey, just try to get into the theme and not so much into like playing well, but it's very difficult, because where do you draw that line of like, well, these are the worst decisions I can make, but I'm going to make them just because that's part of the game. It's kind of like if you're playing a game and you're like, well, there's a bunch of orcs in this room. Ideally, I would kill all the orcs and then I'd be safe, but if I do, then they won't be able to hit me, and then the game will be too easy, so I'm just not going to fight them. And that's like a weird kind of thing. And it's fundamental to the game. The game revolves around this hideous bag, and it revolves around the push your luck, but you really just kind of don't want to do it. And instead, you're just sort of moving around the board, and that's the whole game. There's not a lot of choices there. It's very strange. One of the other major actions you can do, most of the actions are very, very small. Like you can move, which you're already doing. And you can do like some pushes and things, but that's not really that necessary because the other characters can move on their own. One of them is searching, but after you play, you get a couple rounds into of searching into your first game, and you're like, there's mostly bad in the deck. I don't want to search. It's not really useful. So you're like spending an action to search, but it's kind of just hurting yourself. So just don't do it, and then that's one less action to take. So that was a real bummer for me. So just personally, unfortunately, the main meat of this game was avoidable, and honestly, like not just avoidable, but it seemed like the best case to do so, or the best strategy to do so. Now, this designer did Fate of the Nostromo, which I really liked a lot in that game too. Again, that was another one where I think the needle was buried more in the theme side and not enough in the mechanism side. But that game didn't really have a clock either. Both of these games, there's a slight clock with Leatherface's Enraged token and the way that his track sort of fills up. But he's pretty avoidable, and you can take a lot of damage as long as you don't end up on a space with Leatherface. This designer does not seem to build that compelling clock in, and I find that's really what makes most cooperative games work very well for me personally. I feel like the enemy, the villain deck, the game itself has to ratchet up in strength. Otherwise, you're going up in strength. It's not, and it leads to a less satisfying conclusion. The best cooperative experiences I can think of, you've got like a couple of turns left and you're like, how can we make this work? How I could squeeze one or two more actions, and you scour the board and you try to figure out a way to make things just that much more efficient so you can win the game. And in this game, in the Nostromo, like there wasn't really that great clock, and so there's no sense of urgency, and you can kind of take your time and play it safe, when really the theme of the game, I think, should be not playing it safe. Now, I mentioned playtesting, like how I felt like the game wasn't maybe developed enough or playtested enough, and there's a bunch of like that was the major thing, but there's a bunch of little things, and I want to mention like one of them just to give you an idea. I'm not going to nitpick the game like to death. That's impolite, I guess, but there's this one. I had this goal, an objective in one of the games I played, and it said like, hey, you got to draw a certain number of tiles from the bag. Like you have to draw a certain mix of tiles. Okay, and so we'd won the game. We were both standing on the van. We both had gas. We both had the keys and everything. We're ready to win, but you have to complete the objectives to win the game. So we're standing there. Leatherface cannot cross the road. He can't go across the road, but just like the film, he gets really angry, spins around. He can't go, and so we can't lose. You can take 1,000,000 points of damage, but unless Leatherface is on your space, he'll kill you. Otherwise, you could take all the damage in the world. And so I have to draw this specific thing. I could have sat there literally for days just drawing until I got the right mix and then win. And it seems a little weird that there's nothing forcing any of that to stop happening. So like that was just another thing where I feel like once that happened, you'd be like, we better make sure the players can't do that. And I don't know. I guess to wrap up, what a phenomenal love letter this production was in terms of its theme and its presentation and its components. Wonderful. Mechanism-wise, I feel like I would have loved to see some other rules integrated, maybe a little more development in the idea that keeping you locked in and made to go through and use the major mechanism of the game. Unfortunately, this is a bit of a pass for me, I'm sorry to say. But if you really love the theme and you want to give it a try, hopefully this will help you to have decided whether or not that's for you. If you'd like to see a brief overview of this game, if you haven't watched that already, click the link below. But otherwise, I gotta roll.